Life has a way of molding us into forms that don't always fit. Expectations, labels, roles we never chose. But you can always rework the clay. You can soften what's hardened and you can begin again. Becoming who you are isn't always about adding more. Maybe it's about remembering what's real, what's inside, and letting the rest fall away. It's remolding the clay of your life and knowing that you are the artist with the power to reshape your life. You are both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time, and that's amazing and beautiful. Hi, friends. Welcome back or welcome for the first time. However you got here, I'm so glad that you pressed play today. Wherever you are, however you're showing up, thank you for giving yourself this time to slow down and listen. And if someone sent this to you, thank them for knowing that you needed to hear this today, or maybe what you needed to be reminded of. Today, I want to explore a quote that I heard, but one that's echoed through time. And it was said by the ancient Greek poet Pindar. He said, "Become who you are by learning who you are." Simple words, but not a simple process. Because learning who you truly are deep down to our core, means peeling back years of conditioning, expectations, and old stories that might not even belong to us. It's about unlearning as much as it is about learning. And it's about choosing again and again to come back to what's real. So today, let's talk about the journey of becoming. How can we find our true selves beneath everything we were told to be? Everything that was placed on us, that was affixed to us, that became our identity even when it didn't feel right. How we were molded like clay, and how, like clay, we can reshape ourselves again and again into something beautiful, useful, and true. Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology, once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And I love that because it reminds us that this journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering the self that's been buried under all the noise, expectations, and shoulds, the supposed tos, the have tos. And finally, another quote from Aristotle who said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But let's be honest, knowing yourself isn't easy when so much of who we are was shaped long before we even had a say in it, before we even knew what was happening. And it's funny how early we start to try to fit into molds. As children, we're handed little invisible scripts. Be polite, be quiet, be helpful, be smart. And sometimes if you were raised around adults who had strong opinions about what your life should look like, you might have learned to shape yourself around their dreams and not your own. Maybe you were the responsible one, the funny one, the peacemaker, or the achiever, and maybe even the overachiever. You learned how to play a role to keep the peace, to feel loved, or to belong. And then somewhere along the line, you just begin to play that part, and you completely forget who you were before all of that. But those words, "become who you are by learning who you are," those words are a gentle invitation to pause and to think, to ask, who am I really? Not who was I told to be, not who am I expected to be, but who am I when I stop performing, when I stop pleasing, when I stop proving? And that question can feel unsettling because for many of us, our identity was built from the outside in, not the inside out. But what if true becoming, real becoming of your true self, isn't about adding more, doing more, or achieving more, but about slowly removing what was never ours to begin with? Maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. So much of our adult life is unlearning those patterns and beliefs that we picked up as kids, things we were told about what success looks like, what we should want, how we should act, who we should even love. But that's not really becoming. That's performing. That's faking. That's sometimes pleasing for the sake of their peace, but at the expense of your own. So let's talk about clay in this context so you can begin to put a physical visual to this. If you've ever worked with clay, you know it starts out very simple. just earth and water. Two simple elements, the same ingredients that make up so much of the natural world, and us too. But here's what's beautiful. Just like us, no two clays are exactly alike. Each has its own unique blend of minerals, its own balance of water and soil. Some with more soil, some with more water, but each blend creating its own process. Some are smoother, some are gritty, some dry fast, others slow. And that's us. We're all made of the same thing, but equally different. We're all made of the same essential elements: love, pain, hope, fear, creativity, compassion, but in different amounts and different combinations. We're all clay, shaped by our surroundings, our experiences, our families, and the hands that first held us. But what's beautiful about clay is that no two batches are ever the same. Each one has its own blend, its own composition, its own story. And like clay, we are malleable. We're shaped by the hands that first touched us: parents, teachers, friends, culture, society. And sometimes those hands were gentle and smoothed us, but sometimes they weren't and created those ragged edges. But the truth is that no matter how we were first shaped, we are never finished. We are always capable of reshaping, reimagining, recreating. And in reality, most of us didn't choose the first mold we were placed into. Maybe your family had certain expectations: go to this school, pick this career, live this way, love that way. Maybe society told you what success should look like: the car, the house, the perfect timeline to meet. And maybe your community told you what it meant to be a good person. And I've got my Air Bunny quotes around that. So maybe good meant being selfless, quiet, never needing too much, never pushing back, doing what you're told. And maybe somewhere along the line, you realized the life you were living wasn't really yours. It fit, but it didn't quite feel right. It looked fine on the outside, but something inside feels off, like a pot that had hardened before it was finished being shaped. That's the moment many of us begin the real work, the work of learning and reshaping who we are. Because the process of becoming often starts with that ache of misalignment, the knowledge that things are just not quite right in your life, that quiet, uncomfortable knowing that something just doesn't feel right. And it takes courage to say, maybe it's not me that's wrong. Maybe it's the mold I was poured into. Most of us do this later in life. So if you're lucky enough to figure this out early, I hope you have the courage to reshape and rebuild. So how do we actually learn who we are? How do we chip away what's false and rediscover what's true? Let's start with this first, that learning who you are is not a lightning bolt moment. It's a slow unfolding. It's curiosity, not certainty. It's asking gentle but tough questions and being okay when the answers take their time to arrive. So how do you begin this? What small steps can you take to start that unfolding, the unmolding? So here's a few places to begin. Notice what drains you versus what energizes you. Pay attention to what makes you feel alive and what leaves you feeling small or empty. The body often knows the truth long before the mind ever admits it. And listen to your inner dialogue. Whose voice is speaking when you feel guilt, fear, or pressure? Is it yours, or is it someone else's repetitive echo? And finally, reflect on your childhood moments when you felt free, before you learned to edit yourself, before you were told who to be. What did you love? What made you curious? That's often where your truest self still lives. And allow yourself to change your mind as you're going through this process. You're not being inconsistent, you're evolving. Every season of your life reveals new truths, and let that be okay. Becoming who you are means letting go of the need to arrive. It's realizing that you can be both unfinished and worthy, both a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. And sometimes we think that we're set, the clay's hardened and done, that life has fired us in the kiln, and this is who we'll always be. That's just who I am. We get older, we fall into routines, and it feels like our shape is permanent. But even fired clay can be reworked. Potters know that if you soak the hardened pieces in water long enough, they can soften again, ready to be reshaped, reformed, reused. And we can too. And maybe that means letting the water of truth and honesty soak into your life, loosening what's been rigid. Maybe it means breaking a part of yourself open, not to destroy it, but to rebuild it stronger, freer, and truer. And yes, it can be painful, that breaking down, removing of some of the bits and adding in what's needed. But remember, clay doesn't resist the artist. It yields to the artist. It trusts that something more beautiful is coming. And what if we trusted that too? In your life, you're both the clay and the artist. You are the raw material, shaped by experience, but full of potential. And you're also the sculptor, the one with the vision, the one with the hands that can mold and reimagine. And sometimes we forget that. We think we're just the clay, helpless, passive, waiting for life to shape us. We have more say than we think. Every choice, every boundary, every small act of courage, those are the hands that reshape your form. You are not just what happened to you. You are what you do with what's happened to you. So maybe you were shaped into a bowl once, something that held others, that carried their needs, their stories, their burdens. But now you're ready to be something else. Maybe now your life has changed, your kids are grown, and you're becoming a vase, something that holds beauty, something that stands tall on its own. And that's okay, that's growth. It's not saying that you love your kids less. It's saying it's time for something different in your life. There's something sacred about breaking your own mold. In pottery, artists sometimes intentionally smash a piece that doesn't turn out right, not out of anger, but out of reverence, out of respect for the process, because they know the clay can still become something else. It's worthy of rebuilding. The artists see the purpose and the usefulness as well as the beauty. In life, recreating yourself often begins when something cracks. A job ends, a relationship shifts, a version of you just no longer fits. It's tempting to see those moments as endings, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're invitations, new molds, new pathways, invitations to soften again, to begin again, to mold a truer version of yourself. And that recreation doesn't erase your past shape. It honors it. It carries those fragments forward. Every version of you leaves an imprint in the next one, and that's how wisdom is built. So if you're in a season where you feel like you're cracking or breaking apart, maybe this isn't your undoing. It's definitely not your undoing. Maybe it's your reshaping. You might feel like you've already been hardened by time, by life, by the choices you've made. But clay can always be broken down, rehydrated, reworked. You can begin again. Because, like Sophia Bush said, you are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. And if you're in the season of becoming, of learning who you are again, here are some gentle tools that can help guide your hands as you shape the next version of yourself. Reflection. Spend time journaling or walking in silence. Ask yourself, what feels most like me right now? And let the answers guide you. Release perfection. Pottery isn't flawless, it's alive. Your life doesn't need to be perfectly symmetrical. It just needs to be true. Find your community. Every artist needs inspiration. Surround yourself with people who see your potential, who don't try to mold you into someone else, but hold space for your becoming. Keep curiosity. Stay open, play, experiment. You don't need to know what you're creating yet. You just need to start. And sometimes the beauty reveals itself only after you've begun. And finally, rest. Clay that's overworked cracked, and so does a life that's overfilled. Give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to let things settle. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they're highlighted, and made beautiful. And maybe that's what happens when we learn who we truly are. We can stop hiding the places we feel broken and instead let them shine as proof of where we've healed, of how we've patched ourselves. Your cracks aren't flaws. Like Kinzuki, they're the golden seams that make you unique. They tell your story. They remind you that you can bend. You can even break, but you can still be whole, still beautiful. I believe becoming who you are isn't a final destination. I think it's a lifelong conversation between who you were, who you are, and who you're still becoming. If we keep evolving, keep growing, keep adding that gold to our stories, then we're never done shaping, never done softening, breaking, reforming, and glowing. And the more we learn who we are, the more we listen to what's going on inside instead of what others are telling us or showing us outside, the more our outer life starts to align with the inner truth. And that's what it means to become who you are by learning who you are. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering yourself, about coming home to yourself. So if you're in that in-between place, feeling like you've outgrown the old shape of your life, but you're not yet sure what the new one will be, that messy middle, as we like to call it, take heart. You're not lost. You're just being remade. The artist in you is at work, even if you can't see the final form yet. Keep learning who you are. Keep shaping your life with gentleness and curiosity. And remember, you're both the clay and you're the powerful yet gentle hands that mold it. And here's one last quote for you to think about by Eckhart Tolle. You do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you. Thank you for taking the time to listen today, for taking the time for you today. And this can be part of your rebuilding, your remolding. Remember that you have so much goodness and light in you, and that maybe you just need to do a little Kinzuki to find those gold places in you that you've patched, that you've healed, and be proud of those areas. Be proud of the hard work you've done, that you are still doing, and of who you are becoming. And keep shining your light for all to see, little by little, and piece by piece. This podcast is based on my own life experiences. I'm not a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or any other licensed medical professional. Please share this podcast with anyone you think needs to hear this so that we all move forward, little by little and piece by piece. And thank you, Purple Planet, for sharing your music.